mics, you can just turn them on and talk into them. They're going to take. Just if you're not talking, just leave them on. But if you're done, or put them anywhere.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
And if you want to have like a mic for Q&A, I have them here. I can give them to whoever sending them. Close the door and.
Thanks, Frederick. Thank you. All right. Hello. Is this live? Can people hear me? I think we're live now. So first of all, thanks everyone for coming. This is the live visual podcast for the Full Stack Journalism Project. My name's Sabrina. I'll be the moderator today. I'm from an organization called Are We Europe, and we're an independent media organization. And a lot of the projects that we do are around diversifying the independent media landscape, well, the European media landscape, and working towards making it more independent. And we are part of a network called the Reference Network of Independent Media Organizations. It's a self-organized network really built around supporting each other and learning from each other. And during 2023, a lot of the conversations that kind of came out were around, how do we use our tech tools and why are they so reliant on mostly large US-based monopolies? And how can we really be independent if we're also using tools that are often changing due to policies and politics? And this kind of project is really about that, and how can we learn from each other and how can we build different alternatives? And I think before I start, let me probably explain what the hell full stack means for maybe those of you who aren't aware. It refers to the complete set of technologies and the layers involved in building applications and tools, both on the front end, so the things that you see and interact with, but also on the back end and how different systems work. And for this first episode, we thought we'd start with the back end and the infrastructure and how that sort of begins from the ground up. And we'll be exploring questions like, how can we ensure that emerging technologies serve public good? How can we think about the ethical considerations that are prioritized when designing tools and platforms for newsrooms? But most importantly, can independent journalism really be independent and own its own tech stack? And I know it's a little bit warm in here. Actually, when I designed this series, it was in the middle of Berlin's dark depths of winter. And now we're launching it in probably the hottest day of the year. But really appreciate you all being here. And I want to really think about how we move forward with this, and one of the reasons why we decided to host it here in the Public's studios is also to really give us a sense of place, that this is a real place with real people who collaborate and interact with each other. So that's why I wanted to have a live audience with us as well. We're also live on LinkedIn, so for anyone attending online, our community manager, Tara, will also be fielding your questions, so you can also get your questions answered to the experts too. All right. I think that's everything to start with. I'm going to do a small introduction to all of our speakers, but of course, feel free to do your own after. But I'll start with Alexandra in the middle, who is a professor and a German journalist, a researcher and a consultant with a number of decades of experience in the field. So really has worked on all kinds of things. She's taught on leadership in newsrooms. She's written books. She's authored reports. She worked at the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism at the University of Oxford. And previously was the managing editor of Süddeutsche Zeitung, which is one of Germany's leading newspapers. And most of her work focuses on the intersection of journalism, democracy, and digital transformation. And on my left here is Wafaa, and she's an award-winning Egyptian-German journalist with lots of experience in, again, all kinds of things. Very, I think, multi-potentialite group here. But spent a decade at Germany's international broadcaster, Deutsche Welle, and held a number of editorial roles, ran a really interesting digital show and online community aimed at women's empowerment in the MENA region called She Work, and was a regional editor at Unbiased the News, which is a fantastic independent newsroom, for those of you who don't know. And right at the end here, we have Jan, who is currently at the Dark Center, which is a very interesting organization, but is an investigative journalist and has held roles at OCRP, which is the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. We love a good long acronym in this industry. But your career actually began at the radio station, NDR, right? And a lot of his expertise lies in kind of transforming these sort of complex data sets into compelling narratives that really expose corruption and advocate for more transparent processes. And I just want to start with, what led you into thinking about technology, media, and journalism, and how did you get to that sort of intersection? So we'll start with you, Wafaa.
Yeah, I'm accused all the time of wearing many hats and jumping from a position to the next. So thank you for the introduction. And I would add only to this that I'm also studying now cyber psychology, which is the intersection between psychology and its influence, technology and its influence on the human psychology and cognition. And my focus is on AI. And this is building up on so many years of trying to use technology to serve storytelling in journalism. So I did this also with Deutsche Welle at my time there and in other products. So I have been jumping for so many years between being an editor and also kind of product manager or connecting product journalism, which is very tough at the moment because people don't understand each other within these teams. So what brought me to tech is actually the dominancy of tech to our industry, to journalism, to news, to the media, from not only from creation as we used to do, like if you knew how to operate a camera and use a microphone, then you can be an audio and video journalist back in the days. Now it starts from creating the idea and knowing where you are going to distribute it into distributing the idea. And you as a journalist, it became a must to understand the algorithms, starting from understanding the SEO to be able to be read by the search engines, towards understanding how to create different formats that appeal to people and to distribute it into different platforms, from text to TikTok. And so this is how I came into the intersection between these three pillars, journalism, psychology, and tech. I hope this answers the questions.
Yeah, actually, I came I came to tech not knowing that this is tech, because I consciously chose print journalism when I had to make up my mind back in the days between would you like to go to radio, TV, or print, and I chose print because I thought, oh, it's really great to have just a pen and a paper, so people might talk to you more because they might not be distracted by all this tech in the background. Not understanding that actually also print and paper and pen is tech, and that a newspaper is a platform really, and that every platform shapes habits, user experience, and the like. And I only thought about digital journalism much later in my role as managing editor of Süddeutsche Zeitung, because then obviously at some point online became a thing. And actually what we did was we took the print edition and just put it online and just, sort of copy and pasted what was print and put it online, not understanding the implications of the platform, which only changed once social media came up, and then you had all these discussions, should we be on social media, shouldn't we be, this is not proprietary. And at some point I started to get into these different platforms and the different implications and dependencies, and particularly when I then moved to the Reuters Institute in Oxford, to the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism, because they've been doing a lot of research on audience behavior, digital behavior online, and I think it's so important to really study the different implications of technology for user behavior, for psychology, as you just mentioned. And in the past couple of years, I've done a lot of research on how AI will shape not only journalism, but information environments. And that will have completely different implications, again, for how users consume news, how journalism will be visible, and how people will access news. And there are different hypotheses about that. So we are here at an important point in time with another really big change coming up about user behavior.
My journey is a bit different because I started out as a normal investigative reporter using a pen and paper as well in the beginning. And I was in a newsroom or in a team back then where I was the most techie person, I would say. I wasn't a very techie person, which says something about the team, but I was the most techie person. And I've always, especially in the beginning, I've always looked at technologies and tools as something that solves a specific problem for me in this moment, in this very moment, for me or for my team, right? And since I was the person that kind of could solve some of these problems, a lot of these problems ended up on my table, and I started to take a step back and say, and look at the things that we did in the past projects that we're going to do in the next project, and said, like, maybe there's a way around this. Maybe other people have solutions for this. So maybe we should talk to people who have done similar projects in the past. And then one very big project came along that is now known as the Panama Papers. I didn't know it back then that it was going to be so big, but it turned out to be quite big and quite data heavy. And it definitely required us back then, when I was at Norddeutscher Rundfunk, to sort of look at the technological problems that came with a data set like this from a different perspective than before, where we just sort of went as far as we could, and then we figured out how to do the next step. So we needed like a more broader approach, and it kind of became my role within the team to coordinate with other people in the project and to essentially be the person that knows the tools that we would use and figure out how to use them, and then tell the other people in the team how to do this. And I kind of almost would describe this and subsequent roles that I had in the same team and as almost like felt a bit like a product owner or product manager, even though we would never we would never call it that. But we ended up designing specific tooling for these specific projects, but then at the same time these tools became broader and more generic over time. And then when I changed my job and I started working at the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, they were a very tech-focused organization, a very data-focused organization. So a lot of these questions that I had asked myself in my role before that, someone else in the team had already asked the same questions and answered also most of them. So I was in a very lucky position where I could learn a lot of things about how to approach these large data sets and how to work with them. I never really sort of got into the front end part of it. That's why I'm very happy that you said we're going to focus on the back end. and then at some point, me and my co-founders decided to start the Data and Research Center, or DARC. And this is now sort of the logical next step for me, where now we control our own infrastructure. We basically provide independent infrastructure to other newsrooms, which is exactly what I would have wanted back then in the beginning, which obviously now looks like a very nice straight line, but it had a lot of curves and detours in between. Yeah, but that's sort of my way. And now I'm in an organization where I can sort of make a lot of these choices and decisions around the tech stack that we use, and also the tech stack that we offer to clients or to partners that we work with.
And staying on that, dark mode activated. Can you
Too many
explain a
puns.
little bit more about what that kind of infrastructure looks and uses and feels like in a sort of day-to-day setting?
So at Dark, we do basically three things. The one is infrastructure platform as a service. One of the tools that we maintain and develop is called OpenAleph. It's a document search engine. It's an open source tool, so we are not selling the tool, but we are selling the services around it. We are selling the infrastructure. We are selling the administration, the ingest process of the data. So let's say you are a small, medium-sized newsroom and you sit on, I don't know, 500 PDF or 5,000 PDF documents, and you kind of want to make sure that you don't miss anything in there, then you could talk to us and we would set up a private instance of OpenAleph for you, and you could take these documents, ingest them. They are going to be made searchable by the tool. We're going to extract some of the people and companies named in there. We're going to give you a timeline of, it does a little bit of magic around these documents. And and what we also do is that we run a few scrapers and work with a few other organizations to provide what we call reference data sets. So maybe your investigation is geographically in a region where we happen to have a list of politically exposed people. So you can use this sort of as screening material, and you can say, here's my investigation. Can you find any of these people in my document? So I don't have to type in 100 names or 1,000 names manually, right? And we use public or semi-public data sets for that. Again, our selling point here is not we provide information or data to you that you can't get anywhere else, but we say we do it for you, we make it very easy for you, and you don't have to worry about it, right? And you can have it now. And the other two things that we do is separate from that is that we provide bespoke data and research services. So basically, if you look at your OpenAleph instance and you have a lot of data in there, but you need one specific website scraped, we could do this as well for you, and we will sort of do this as a one-off or as a recurring scraper that we run. Or if you end up finding an interesting connection through some of these reference data sets and you want to dig deeper and you need someone to pull a corporate record from a jurisdiction that you're not familiar with, this is something that we do. And other types of sort of OSINT research around profiling people or mapping out corporate structures. And the third thing that we do is trainings around these things. So we want to make sure people understand the tools that they use, people understand the techniques that we use. We want to be transparent with how we get access to information, and also help people sort of do it on their own and figure out how to do their own research. Yeah.
No, it's really cool. I remember when I first found out about Dark and OpenAleph. Again, I wish that existed sort of 10 years ago. A couple of questions on that. One, are most of the organizations that use your tools and services independent? And the follow-up question to that is, how have you built the infrastructure in a way that encourages collaboration between organizations?
I'm going to start with the second question because it's easier for me. So what we do is not necessarily sort of, I wouldn't say the infrastructure is built in that way. So the tool itself is built to work as or to solve problems for a team of 5, 15, 20, like a small to mid-sized team of investigators who work on the same project. But it does not necessarily facilitate collaboration in a way that, for example, I don't know, something like Google Docs does, or something that is specifically built to be a collaborative tool. So you can share data using the tool, you can sort of manage permissions, you can manage access, you can share information that you collected yourself and that you add to the tool or to the database. But we've specifically decided to make it do one thing and do that thing well, and it's not going to be the entire suite of, like, this is not going to be your only homepage that you ever use in your project, hopefully. What we also do internally, and this is maybe a sort of not direct answer, but indirect answer to your question, is that when we set this whole up, and this is mostly Simon, one of my co-founders, who did the whole thinking process and the planning for this. When we set it all up, we decided that we want to be as independent as we can be, not only when we interact with the customer, but also for us internally. So all of the tools that we use internally, from calendar to sort of the Dropbox equivalent, we use OwnCloud, etc., etc. These are set up and hosted by our own company on our own hardware that we own, that we bought, that we paid money for, and that we know where it is, and we have a key for it, or I think it's a keypad actually. And we can go and make changes to it, and we can physically sort of touch the hardware, which is a very rare thing these days. And this is something that it's very interesting if we talk to clients or potential clients. There's one group that's really interested in this part, and they really kind of want to know why we did this and what was our thought process and how do we make sure it's secure. And then there's the other group. It's just like, I don't care. Like, I just want it to work, right? Which is fine. Like, both of these sides are totally fine. But for us, it was a very long process, and we are currently not doing this, but we are potentially also in a position where some of these tools that we use internally, we could provide to other organizations. We are a very young organization, but we focus on OpenAleph, the data tool. But if someone says, look, I need to have a very secure calendar for my project, I don't trust the big tech solutions for this, can you set this up for me? Then this is something that we can just do and then provide to people, and then at least we know where it is. We kind of physically know where the hardware is. We know how people access it and through which servers and routers it goes. Are most of the clients or all of the clients independent newsrooms? I mean, as I said, we're a fairly young organization. We are in a lucky position where Simon did some of this work before. He was already sort of providing platform administration, infrastructure services before that. So some of these clients we transferred into the new organization. I would say the majority is yes. And then, I mean, it depends a bit on your definition of a independent or dependent newsroom or organization. But I think this is definitely who we cater to in the moment. Yeah. But we would. It's not that we would say no to other organizations. It's just that a lot of specifically the very large organizations, they just already have some solution for most of these things in place. And they don't necessarily have the need or think that they have the need to work with us on these things.
But it must be so interesting to have infrastructure that you can look and touch and feel, and there's a physicality to it instead of it being this sort of abstract thing that lives elsewhere. But I also think it's very interesting, and it's a conversation we were sort of discussing a couple of hours ago. What makes independent media independent? Is it the perspectives? Is it how we operate? Is it the people that are part of the organizations? Is it the way in which it's sort of funded? And maybe that's a great question to start with you, Alexandra, in that, you know, you work with a lot of leaders and do a lot of these sort of trainings. And when it comes to thinking about technology and the tech stack, what is often some of the queries or opinions or challenges that they have?
I mean, the bad news is that complete independence is impossible. You always have dependencies. In earlier times, you used to be dependent on advertising clients, even though there was this church-state separation. You have funders that generates their own structures of dependency. So there's always some sort of dependency. And what I think is important is that you are aware of these, that you really know where the different sets of dependencies are. And sometimes diversifying is also a way to reduce dependencies on one. Now you can put fill in the blank, like one funder or one technology, one platform, and modern news organizations very often operate multi-platform. So there are different dependencies on different platforms. This said, in the AI age, it will be absolutely crucial to, and I always say, own your audience. You need direct connections. You need to build direct connections to your audience. You need loyal relationships, people who actually access and come back to your brand, who like to interact with you, because we will have pretty soon search engines will be replaced by answer engines for a share, for a larger share. I mean, we can see that the adoption of Gen AI based tools is rapid, much faster than any tech adoption before in history. There was just this report by Mary Meeker coming out last, which is really shows nicely how fast this adoption is. So really, you have this new world of where journalism can actually become invisible when you don't cultivate your direct connections with audiences. So if you have a tech stack as a media company, you really need to make sure that it really helps with exactly that purpose, to really connect you directly to your audience, to also support your business model, if it's a membership model or a subscription-based model or whatever model you have, that it makes it really easy for your members, your subscribers, whoever else, for example, to give you money for your services or products. So that is really a core requirement to have these direct connections, and it's also open for negotiation. If you use stuff, and very often small organizations need to use off-the-shelf solutions because they can't really build their own stuff. They can't really invest in this. Maybe this is going to change. Who knows? I mean, you said you're a small company, and hopefully already successful. But still, sometimes you need off-the-shelf solutions, and you really need to optimize your strategy for what you want to achieve, and also to maybe help your provider to achieve these goals. So you really need a strategy and really optimize for your basic needs and your business model also.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's now a lot more solutions that have been built by independent newsrooms. Okay, the caveat, they're independent newsrooms that are larger and well-funded, like Corrective, like Zetland, for example. And for Full Stack, one of the things that we're doing is building a database of these tools. And there are also other, when you think outside of media, there's also other projects like European Alternatives, for example. And there's a research organization called Eurostack, and one of their main sort of pieces of research is that 80% of all the digital tools and platforms that we use are based in the US. And only 7% of European tools are actually used globally. And when we think about, okay, is it about innovation? Is it about off-the-shelf tools? Is it about monopolies? But there are also a number of really interesting tools and softwares and platforms that are coming out of the global south. And Wafaa, I know you have some really interesting opinions on this specifically, but it'd be great to know what kinds of, as a techno-psychologist, are we calling it now? What kinds of barriers you think are sort of happening there? Is it about language? Is it about dissemination? Is it about, okay, well, we've been using this US-based tool for so long, why would we change?
Let me start from answering in very short way whether there's an independent media, there's independent journalism or not. In short, no. I don't think there's 100% independent media. We have to be dependent, or we had to be dependent on some funders, some tools, some tech, some platforms, and there are so many attempts now trying to break these barriers, again from Web3 and all the other disruptive solutions that decentralizes the idea of having complete dependency.
But we depend on each other?
Yeah, exactly.
As our dependency.
Exactly. So this is actually what I was just about to talk about. So the idea is like, until we reach to this independency as we aim for, what is the solution on the way? I think the solution would be agency and more integrity for the tools that we are using. The more that we have agency over the tools, and we ensure that these tools are keeping the journalistic integrity, then we are fine. And this is basically what you're saying. Depend on each other, share resources, as you were saying, and ensure that these tools and these resources that we are doing are at least compliant with the environment that we are living in. And now we are talking about Europe and European tools, trying to be a bit more dependent from the US Silicon Valley dominancy of the tech solutions that we have to use in a way or another. But when we are talking about the global South, it's very tough to ask them to do this, because we are here very privileged. We have the resources, we have the support, we have actually organizations that are being built in a healthy, democratic community most of the time. Yes, in most of the European countries. So we are having this privilege to create and to share this knowledge. Many countries don't have this privilege. Besides all the other barriers that we inherit, including the language barriers. So talking, for example, about the AI, and in the AI so-called revolution that we are living now, the language models are dominantly in English, and we saw the DeepSeek that came from China, and then they became these two big competitors. And there are some attempts for example, in the Arabic speaking region to create Arabic LLMs. There are some Latin American LLMs, and even there are some small original languages that are being trained, but it's all independent or alternative solutions that people are trying to create, and they are completely absent from us in journalism and in media. So for example, when we are talking about these deals that are happening between the big tech AI actors at the moment and the big media houses, we see the polarization between those two. So there are those who are making deals with these companies and get benefits, and they give content as well. And there are the others who want to monetize the content and they don't get the deal, so they go to court for that. And where are we, the independent, medium-sized media, be it in Europe or even in the global South? We are out of this conversation. So in order to be more independent and go to more independency, I think we need to start to think now about the mistakes that we did, for example, before, when we relied heavily on social media for distribution, and now we are struggling big time to break through the algorithms and their biases, and think what we can do now to protect our content and to monetize this content. And there are some attempts to build some walls behind the media websites. So the bots that are scrapping for the big LLMs, they cannot go through without your license. And licensing this content is a crucial step that we need all to think now about, because if we leave it until these are completely trained and have complete access, and then we are giving voluntarily and for free our content and our work, which is actually good, and they rely heavily on this very good verified content that we do with all our resources, and they just take it for free because it's a common understanding, as the Microsoft head of AI before said, it's a common understanding to take this content, so they take it for free for that. So I think we need to think more strategically and show a little bit of teeth and say, well, you don't take our content unless it's licensed, or you pay with your infrastructure, you pay with your money, you pay with your algorithms. We need to make sure that we know what you are doing with our data, and I think this is the time now to talk about this.
Yeah, I like the metaphor of showing a bit of teeth. Yeah, I think it's really interesting when we're talking about it from, okay, not giving away everything that we've always given away, but how does that work how does the infrastructure work for that? Are we doing the deals? As independent media, are we smaller, and do we have enough resources to do that? And I don't know if you've seen Karen Howe's new book, Empire of AI. Karen Howe was one of the first journalists that was let into OpenAI and reported on the sort of inner workings of OpenAI, and a lot of what I would say is a sort of top line summary of the Full Stack Journalism Project is, how do we score the tension between independent media reporting on the big tech platforms that we use to produce our journalism? And specifically when we're talking about this, a lot of what Karen Howe has done is also look into, okay, who are the workers and laborers actually building this infrastructure, and who are the, at least a question for me is, if, me as an editor, could I ethically publish a piece on the terrible working conditions of OpenAI whilst using OpenAI tools to then produce that? I mean, hypothetically speaking, of course. And so my question really is actually to all of you, who decides what counts as ethical technology, and who gets left out of that conversation? Is it independent media? Is it the workers? And of course we have the EU AI Act. We won't get into that today, maybe in a later episode, but, in terms of those policies and how they're applied, but what are the gaps there? We'll start with you, Jan.
I mean, the answer to your very, very specific question as an editor, can I do this or can I not do this? I guess it's similar to a lot of other ethical questions around journalistic practices, right? So yes, you can do it. But if you don't tell your audience about it and someone finds out, then you all of a sudden become the subject of someone else's story, and that's going to be very painful, maybe, potentially. And I think one of the solutions, not only to this AI question or the tool question in general, is that we as journalists just are very open with what we do and how we use tools and which tools we use, and also which tools we decide not to use, right? So if I read a story about OpenAI, and then there's like a little box at the bottom that says like the story was fact-checked, whatever, using AI tooling, then I as a reader can draw my own conclusions from it, and I can decide to not read this publication or not visit this website again. I'm kind of almost outsourcing the ethical decision to the reader or to the audience, right?
Do you think it's ethical to outsource the ethical decision?
I think to a degree, no. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think to a degree it is, and I think there is and this is true in journalism with a lot of other ethical questions. There's sort of a bottom line of what we all agree. And some of these things are written down, and some are sort of informally just in the DNA of a journalist, I guess, what you can and what you can't do. And then individual publications for themselves, and this is a good thing in my opinion, will always have the last word. The editor-in-chief or the managing editor or whoever is the person to make this decision will always have the last word on a yes or no decision. Can we do this or can't we do this? I think it's a great thing that this sort of common understanding of what a journalist does, stick to the truth, don't lie to people in the process of sort of interviewing them about what you're doing in your story. There's like very basic things, right? And the same is also, I think the same should be true for the tools that we use. It's not the case right now, but I think it should be the case that it should be visible to me as someone who is subscribing to an online publication, or who's, I don't know, who's watching the episode of like a journalistic episode on Netflix or something, to somehow find out how they did it, right? I don't need to know which version of which tool specifically. I don't need the whole like wash list of things that they did, but I kind of want to know what these people were using. And this is becoming more and more an issue, or an open question in a lot of cases when it comes to using AI tools. But there's one very big problem, and that is that specifically with large language models or AI support in general, these things are going to be built in every commercial software in the next 5 years, whether or not it makes sense to do this. So maybe I, as a reporter, don't even know that I use AI doing something, right? I just used my Excel spreadsheet and I said, like, I don't know what you do.
On
like
WhatsApp also.
yeah. It's like basically everywhere. So, and this is also the problem that I personally have with these. So there are a number of these charters where or like these rules that some newsrooms or groups of newsrooms sort of set up for themselves. I think it's a bit hard to follow their own rules. They're not off to a good start when you set up a list of rules and then you find out that it's really hard to follow these rules, right? If I say, whenever I use AI in any of my reporting process, I'm going to tell my reader or my audience about it, it's probably not true. You probably don't do this because you don't realize that you just used AI for whatever web search you did, or for whatever sort of, I'm analyzing the spreadsheet real quick and there's like a magic button.
Or maybe you can automate the declaration even.
Yeah. No, so this is an issue. So, but again, this is solved through transparency. This is also something that I, as a reporter, and if I'm in a bigger, more powerful organization, I have high value contracts with some of these software houses, I can also ask them for this kind of transparency, right? It's interesting that you announced your new AI feature, but I mean, I'm a paying customer. Tell me how you do it. Tell me how are you aware of what's happening behind the scenes, right?
And I wanted to make a similar point. Try to get around Microsoft Office products. I mean, this is like when you say, not use a tool. Well, particularly when you work independently, you're invited anywhere and people use Microsoft Teams. And I remember the pandemic at a certain stage when certain organizations tried to find alternatives to Microsoft Teams or Zoom and whatever, and they were like, oh, we use this tool, and it was super inconvenient, and you couldn't see, their co-discussants. And then after the pandemic, like quietly, everyone moved to Microsoft Teams. Now Microsoft Teams has like this AI copilot, whatever. So there's really no way around it. Absolutely no way. So the only way really that could be effective is if the industry really teams up and speaks with one voice, and negotiates with the tech companies what are the demands for news integrity. And we just saw this initiative by the EBU, which is the world's largest association of public broadcasters, with members from all over the world, and one IFRA, which is the largest organization for commercial publishers. They teamed up and started this news integrity initiative, and it can't really get smaller than that. You really need to team everyone up and speak in one voice to really make clear that what you already said also, that a healthy information ecosystem is just the basis of not only democracy, it's the basis of functioning society, even in non-democracies. So it's really, really important to make that point. And independent newsrooms providers, they won't get anywhere. And I mean, the tech industry doesn't really have that much of an interest in it, and the whole trend about supporting individual creators was often masked as a trend or like an attempt to give individual voices agency and help different communities find their voice, whatever. But it's also at the same time been an initiative to sort of divide up the whole media space, because it's so much easier as a big tech company to deal with lots of independent creators who will go out of business if they can't use your tools and whatever, than to really act, in opposition or collaborate, jointly or faced with a really strong media companies the team up and say, you know, these are our demands. This is what we need. This is the minimum that we need to agree upon. So really, we need more collaboration and more unity, and not this dividing up and telling people like, oh, you know, being this individual creator is just super cool, which it is, but you might also need the protection of a major player in this industry to really fight for you. We really need some muscle here.
I can't really agree more. I mean, it's again, taking AI as an example, because it's everywhere now and no one can avoid it. It's on our phones, it's in our emails, it's everywhere. And again, talking about the context of where we are using these tools. Here in Europe, we can choose to shut down all these other things, at least privately, and use our other platforms that are more independent. But in other places, there is absolutely no way when gig workers, for example, depend so much on WhatsApp, and now they have the AI that basically scrapping also the data. We are not 100% sure until one journalist does the investigation and proves it for us. But we can assume what they are doing with the data, knowing the history of the company from before. And more than that, even if we are having the big agreements with these companies, they cannot even explain it to themselves. They cannot. There is this black box thing about AI and the unexplainability of AI, and they cannot explain how this works. This is why in the language models, if you give one prompt today and in the next hour you give the same prompt, you will get completely different answer. And no one, even the engineers who did this model, even those who trained the data sets and everything, no one can tell you why you got two completely different answers, even if you give the same prompt. So we are kind of in journalism, we are always in the middle of this fight, and there are the tech oligarchs and the big actors from the government, and now we see how much it is allowed to let them use our data. And even moreover, as a cyber psychologist, I would say our behavior data that are online, to exploit us and to manipulate us. Data Analytica, for example, some years ago, even before this huge trend of AI, it was said in the investigations that they used AI tools to figure out some data points, and they targeted people in their vulnerable moments after identifying their behavioral data points, where and when they can target them and convince them about some decisions. So we don't, as humans, we are not sure anymore if we own our decision-making process. And in journalism, we are, of course, talking about this, and we're a bit skeptical, and we take a step backwards and we think before using the tools. But on the other side, at the end of the user and the audience, I'm not sure to what extent this conversation is happening, and the tools are there and they are using them. And if we want to reach to the people, there is no way that we say, oh, we are not using WhatsApp, and we are not using Facebook, and we are not using TikTok. I mean, how many times we wrote investigations about the TikTok algorithms, and we still, big media houses are now all on TikTok distributing their reports, right? Because this is where the audience are, this is where the people are. So it's a big vicious circle that we are in, and the solution at the moment is to be aware and to talk about it and to continue not being polarized between the doomers and boomers. This is, as Karen House say, like there are these AI tech doomers who are always skeptical about the tech, and they are not sure what's going to happen, and it's apocalyptic, and the machine will come and eat us all when we are sleeping. And they're the boomers who's like, AI is great, is amazing. We will all have salaries while sitting at home and
universal basic income.
Exactly, and it will do our laundry. It will work for us, and we will be
chill.
amazing, right? And it will take our jobs as journalists as well, but we will do the good stuff anyway. This is not true, and this is not true, and it's a tool, AI, and any tech that we are using is a tool, and we know that we can repurpose every tool to our benefit. And at the moment, if we cannot be 100% dependent from these tools, from these platforms, at least let's be aware of how to repurpose them and use them to our benefits in public interest journalism.
Thank you. I think we'll go to the audience now for questions. Who has any questions? Maddie's got a microphone. Don't be shy. Otherwise, I do have one more, if that's okay. Which is, it seems like a very easy thing to say to be like, well, we shouldn't use Google, let's use this other independent tool because, if the algorithm changes or, other kind of big tech platforms, and you kind of get whiplash from the strategy changes that you need to do every single time. But we've also seen a number of instances in which independent tools, because they're also independent, likely smaller organizations, not surviving and, spending years sort of building infrastructure with these tools and then getting whiplash that, they don't exist anymore and where else to go. And I think specifically in this conversation, it's a little bit like if we had a comparison, a lot of independent media that no longer exists anymore, who, journalists have had their articles published with them, now can't find them online due to link rot, and essentially the website's not existing anymore and losing a lot of the archive of their work. What kind of advice would you give to independent media organizations in terms of what is the sort of payoff between choosing independent and choosing essentially for your work to still stay online?
First of all, what you said is also very true for a lot of big tech or former big tech platforms and tools, right? So, MySpace was the big thing for a while, and then it wasn't anymore. And here in Germany, specifically, things like StudiVZ were a thing, and also software comes and goes, I guess. The one big advantage, and now we're sort of coming back to me describing how we can go to our server and touch it and feel it. The other thing that we can do is that we can also take it and put it somewhere else, right? So if the data center that we host our server in right now just doesn't exist anymore, as says we don't want to work with you anymore for political reasons or because we just don't like your face or anything, I don't know, we can just take the thing and have a long weekend, bring it somewhere else, set it up, and then the next Monday it's running again and the website is online. This is one of the beauties. It comes with I don't want to sort of be too romantic about it. It comes with a lot of learning and a lot of understanding what you're doing there, but I think it's worth it for organizations to spend. I'm not expecting everyone to run their own servers, but I'm expecting sort of people to use to spend some time and resources thinking about the life of their product, be it a journalistic story in text or be it a video or whatever, right? So make sure you understand what happens when you give it to YouTube and then it lives there, and then at some point someone in California decides to flip a switch and then it doesn't anymore. Like, do you have a backup? Do you have a backup offsite because your office might burn down or something like this? This is something that people need to think about, and this is very true and much easier for texts and papers as well. But I also kind of want to say, I'm sad for the journalists that you just described, but personally I think the fact that the internet is a living sort of almost organism-like creature that changes over time and that develops a new arm here and loses a leg over there. It's quite beautiful, actually. Like I don't hate it. I'm okay with the fact that some websites don't exist anymore and then new ones come up. And that's sort of okay for me, and it's also good for me because then we have new websites to scrape and old websites that don't exist anymore that we might have a copy of. People are going to be interested in that, so there's a market in it for us as well. But in all seriousness, I think if this is what I do for a living, if publishing stories is what I do for a living, obviously I also have to make sure that I understand what happens after the moment of publication and how I can make sure that I can at least have my personal archive.
There's actually, or is there a question? No. There's actually much bigger philosophical questions, not only a philosophical question attached to it, because there are some predictions that in the AI age, we will move more and more from like the text format to the oral format. And the really big question is, where will be like the record for history? Where will be, that one
back to oral
public
traditions
record that, puts, because let's face it. Humans have a natural end to them, and so content might also have a natural end to it, and so all these things are not meant to be forever. But where is actually the record for history? And also when we go back to that oral culture, I'm not sure really, but there are lots of people who predict like we will have in the future just chat formats, people interacting with news formats and whatever. I personally have my doubts about it, but there are serious experts on stages and AI conferences who predict that these kind of things. So I really wonder how the future of information and journalism even will look like, and the future of history being written and continued. Will we ever have a publicly agreed upon factual record, or will this just all be, as you said, back to the oral culture? Up to the audience here. Question.
For me, I have history in romanticizing the internet and the culture of the internet. I feel sad and devastated when they cancel a product like ICQ or Skype, for example.
RIP Skype.
Yeah, the Skype is big time, because I think it becomes part of our identity. We grew up. I grew up knowing the internet with the dial-up modem and what it was like in Egypt. That was very expensive. I almost spent like a fortune growing up trying to dial up the modem and go surf the internet. And then I get to know ICQ back then. It was like revolutionary, and it started with chats with people, random people everywhere. And then Skype came with the targeted chat, intentional chat, and then it even revolutionized that more with video chats and audio chats, and that was like great thing, right? In order to build more in any heritage, I guess, and I see that the internet is having also its own heritage. I think we need to archive and to understand and to, from time to time, look back and understand what happened, also to learn. Now for me, to learn about the dynamics between the AI companies and the news industry. I go back and they look into the dynamics that happened between similar companies, mostly the same companies in most cases, and the news industry when it happened with the social media, right? How did it started? How the media houses reacted? How the small and medium news organizations reacted, and how these big tech people also reacted in a certain way and try to predict how we can do it differently this time. I think we need to think about solutions, including independent data centers or hardware for us. But again, looking at the countries, communities who cannot afford this. We cannot always take the responsibility of creating our own silos to be able to function. We need to ask about more of a universal responsibility and start pushing towards this goal, because if we say, okay, big tech are doing this and we don't have any solution for that, and okay, we are building our own islands here, and that's it, that's the only solution. I think we need to find multiple solutions that fit with context to different communities, and to encourage also communities to build their own solutions that fits with them. I mean, what fits with a newsroom here in Berlin, or fits with a newsroom in exile from Afghanistan or from Belarus, doesn't mean it fits with the same newsroom in Kenya or in Egypt or in Sudan at the moment, with all the war that is happening. So I think we need just to think more broadly, and to think universally, and to use our privilege being here and having a little bit of comfort to build our own infrastructure, and think about the universal solution, because they are not only scrapping data from Europe, they are scrapping data of everyone. And when they are using and studying all of these data to manipulate or exploit the human, it's not the human in Europe or the human there. I mean,
or the one in the loop.
Exactly. And yesterday there was historical court verdict in Kenya that stopped a data company from using and exploiting the data of the people there, which, like, I saw the activists there saying Kenyans are not lab rats, yes, right? Correct, for the data companies or for the tech companies. And I think this is the slogan that we should all have at the moment. Not the Kenyans, not the Egyptians, not the Sudanese, not the Latin Americans, not the Europeans, not the Americans. No human should be just material for the tech companies to use.
Thank you so much. That's probably a good note to end on, also because that will be the end of the LinkedIn live stream. But of course, if anyone has any questions, we can answer them for the next sort of few minutes.
Hi, thank you very much so far. I completely agree with what both of you have said in these last two mentions, like for once that we have to understand better what technology we're using, but also to be a bit more brave in speaking against some developments. But on the other hand, I always ask myself, like, speaking for myself, but I assume it's a problem for many people, the ability to understand the tools that I'm using would require a completely different training than what I used to learn when I started my profession. And I assume that's the case for many journalists as well, like being in their jobs at the moment. So how... I mean, the urge to use tools because markets are changing and developing is always much faster than the urge to learn what is behind them. So do you have any ideas how to address this problem? And also, I sometimes feel like we need more reliable sources of truth. So maybe it's also a task for journalists to report more and better on tech developments, for people to have some kind of guidance and something to rely on when making their own decisions, because I assume we cannot expect every person relying on AI to be able to get trained on these programs.
I think AI literacy, what you just talked about, is a really very, very important topic, and AI literacy in the general population, but also in newsrooms, because obviously people in newsrooms need to know even more, and they need to do a lot more reporting and also investigating AI companies, which is hard, to do that. But really, AI training, AI literacy in newsrooms, in news organizations is extremely, extremely important. And it's a bit a tricky thing, because in the AI age, actually what is really, really important is also to ramp up on the quality of journalism. So you really need to invest in your journalism. You need to you need to hire better reporters who know their trade. You need to really move up the journalism, the value chain. And on the other hand, you need a lot more tech proficiency and knowledge. And when I did the report, Leading Newsrooms in the Age of Generative AI, I talked to lots of people, AI leaders in news organizations, and one person from the Finnish broadcaster, Yuli, he said it's really a challenge when you design these systems. Like you can design these content management systems, whatever, or custom-made GPTs in news organizations in a way that the users just have to press a button. So as a journalist, like if you're a brilliant investigative, don't even think about, just press a button because your system will do the job for you. But he said it's really tempting to do it this way. But then again, you should make it a little bit challenging, because otherwise you will have all these journalists who are not AI literate, because these models work differently. People need they need to know what the differences are between using different models. And he also said, if we create these black boxes, just press a button and then your work will be done. We're doing the same thing the tech companies are doing that we are accusing them of doing. You just create these black boxes. So it's really important in news organizations to be very transparent, to also educate people, to build and to design systems that make people still use their brains, to think a little bit about what they are doing and what they're using to really keep that level of knowledge up. Because what you said is true. I mean, the speed of tech development is just, it's breakneck speed, and it's really, really hard to catch up. And you can have people in news organizations spending all day, every day on keeping up with all these tech developments. So it will be completely impossible for individual journalists to do both, to do their jobs well, their research, their investigations, whatever, and to keep up with what's happening. So yeah, tech design is a big thing.
From experience, trying to catch the train all the time with the AI, with the social media algorithms, we started with square videos, then moving to vertical videos, and then Instagram liked photos for so long time, then it hated photos and it liked more videos, and we had to learn all of that. Starting, as I said in the start, I had to learn also what is SEO, how it works, how I can rank better on Google. So when I write my story in the first paragraph, I have to use these and these keywords in order to make my story visible. That's tiring. And it's a huge burden on the new generation of journalists to learn that. And I'm not saying that newsrooms or media companies should expect that every journalist should know this, because this is a mistake that happened already with social media, that at a certain moment everyone was expected to be understanding and doing everything, which was not a wise thing to do. And now we are paying the price for that. We are not anymore identifying sometimes between a social media influencer and a journalist, and we are falling into some traps there sometimes. But what I see journalism is about, it's again, and especially digital journalism and the internet, it's like a living profession. Every couple of years, you had to learn something new, otherwise you would lose the skill, and you need to sharpen an old skill to become better and to master the skill more. Now it's just became shorter time. It's like every couple of months.
Oslo.
Yeah, exactly, every couple of months. I wouldn't rush AI literacy or AI education in newsrooms, and also for the people, for the user, and for everyone is very important. Myself, I'm working on a project that tackles this as well. But I wouldn't fear this panic of like, we are going to lag behind if we don't learn every day something about AI, because as much as the technology is developing, they are also figuring out some bugs and some flows, and it's like what you didn't learn 2 months ago, you don't need to learn today. You actually just need to learn what just came yesterday. and that's it. You don't need to know how ChatGPT or OpenAI started. I don't know, 10 years ago when they started the idea. Maybe I don't know if it's 10 years or not. But you just need to know now they are using these custom GPTs or wrappers in newsrooms. And okay, if my newsroom is using that, I would like to know on which language model is based, and just understand a little bit and use it, not to be on the dark side. But don't be scared from running after the knowledge. It will come to you.
And ironically, OpenAI started as an independent non-profit
and then monetizing,
funded by a very specific person. But yeah, do you have any last thoughts, Jan?
This might be a controversial statement, but surprisingly, using chatbots is a very good way of understanding technology. This is what I've been learning. I mean, this is what I see as one of the major use cases of generative AI chatbots is explaining complex technical or in other industries or in other parts of sort of the things that you want to learn as well in easy, simple language, right? So if you want to figure out how a chatbot works, then just ask the chatbot and it's potentially going to give you a pretty good answer. And then if you say, this is too complicated for me, break it down, then it's probably going to do it. But at the same time, like when I was in journalism school, everyone said we're going to all do mobile journalism. Everyone's just going to run around with a mobile phone. Nobody's going to be a cameraman or camera woman anymore. And it's not true, right? I mean, some of this sticks, and some of these tools are going to be part of the workflow of a journalist from now until forever. But some of the hype is going to go away, I'm pretty sure. And this is very true, I think, very true for generative AI. It's less true for the sort of prediction models that we talked about a little bit, that run behind the scenes and that figure out how to distribute content or how to address readers or audiences, etc. But I think specifically for the sort of classic, this is like my chatbot window, I type something in and then it gives me an answer. This is great, and this is going to play a role in the journalistic workflow and in the life of a journalist, but it's also going to be less, hopefully, maybe important to fully understand what's going on there, I think.
Amazing. I'd like to thank all three of you for your very interesting insights, and also everyone here who came. I know it was a very warm time in here, but we will be here every Tuesday for the next few weeks, and then every Wednesday in July. So you're all welcome back. Sorry, Wednesdays in June, Tuesdays in July. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you so much. Wonderful conversation.